find myself like just sitting in front of my camera without even turning it on like 20 minutes before I start my recordings just because I can't think of how to start. And like I mentioned before, I think it's because that's why YouTubers have intros, so they don't have to think about what they have to say. But I'm trying not to sound tacky, so I don't end up saying anything at all, and then I just sit by myself, and it's really weird. But here's a new video, I guess. Welcome, beautiful people, to more Legos, because that's what happens on my channel. I made a variant of my M4 Sherman that I wanted to show off today. I did a new color scheme for it, and I wanted to talk a little bit about sort of how I did that, and show it off because I think it's a fairly nice model. And yeah, so I have an American tanker here as just scale comparison, but this is not an American Sherman. So most people know that at the beginning of World War II, when the M4 Sherman was first designed as a result to the somewhat ineffective Grant, the M3 Grant tank, it was first used in North Africa by the British, and they were naturally not used 100% in like green forest camouflage or other generic gray colors. They were painted tan like this in order to be able to hide in the deserts of North Africa. And I wanted to do a North Africa Sherman, and I had the pieces, so I ended up doing that. And that's kind of the short answer. I was doing some reading on the Sherman in general because I like to be somewhat well educated with that. I realized the one that I built, I believe, is an M4A3, in which it has the molded cast turret to some degree, and then it has the welded body with the angled plates on it. So I thought that was kind of fun. I did some more reading on it. So this technically is an A3. I don't know if the A3s were very commonly used by the British Empire, or if they were even given or used in the North African campaign like this at all. But I wanted to be kind of imaginative and use the stuff that I had and make something interesting as far as making modifications for my M4 Sherman. I was considering going down the route of building the 76W turret with the longer gun. I did not end up making that. I wanted to work on it a little bit later, but I didn't. I'm thinking about that in the future. I'm still considering versions for my Sherman naturally. But the one that I am doing right now is the desert variant. So the Sherman is inherently the same. It is not tremendously changed. I definitely made some very small slight modifications when it came to piece variety. Similarly how I did my winter camouflage on my Panzer IV. Some of the pieces had to be replaced, like the end of this gun barrel or certain colored pieces concerning the back or the undercarriage, to make up for the fact that there aren't certain pieces that are available in this tan color. But aside from that, the design of the Sherman is inherently the same. I left a lot of the accent pieces dark gray because there's a lot of pieces that are not made in tan to sort of just kind of cover up the fact that there aren't pieces that are like that. And then I also left dark gray on intentionally as accent places so that the Sherman wasn't just one boring tan color, because you totally can make it like that. I personally like to have a little more variety and a little more imagination, and think that the tank wouldn't have been completely just one color because I feel like that's unrealistic. In an attempt to not be redundant, I'm not really going to go over the features too much or hang on them for too long because everyone's kind of already seen my Sherman. It's not really a new tank. It's mostly just here to get footage of the new color scheme that I used on it. But it has all the features that it had in the original one. I made sure that none of the piece changes had any inherent changes to the functions of it. So the tracks still roll well. Both of the hatches open and you can sit 2 people inside and 2 people with their heads sticking out. The turret rotates full 360 degrees. And the turret hatches open when it's facing forward and such, and the gun elevates and depresses, and the top commander hatch opens as well. I don't know if you can see that. So it has all the same functions. I didn't want to change the tank too much so that it wasn't any good as far as the feature goes. The scale is exactly the same. Naturally, it's ultimately the same model with very, very slight modifications to color changes. And I think that it's fairly good, all things considered. I could end up ordering more pieces, and if I wanted to make it even more tan than it actually is, because naturally stuff like this big gray stripe are a little bit jarring considering the color scheme. However, I liked the variety and appreciated it kind of just how it was, and didn't want to kind of mess it up any more than it had to, or make it too boring. So I feel like a lot of people who build these kinds of things, they think that it's definitely easier to just end up doing it all one solid color and order all the pieces and do it like that. I prefer to be a little bit more innovative because I don't have the good piece variety, and I try to fake it with stuff like this gray line, in which I was like, hey, I actually literally didn't have any more of these curved pieces in tan, so I ended up using gray, and I think that the accent is just fine, and it makes the tank look fairly nice. Considering the inside, let me see if I can pop this off here, it's just about the same. I made some slight modifications, like I mentioned. I added some little clips in there so that I could add like a hammer and stuff, little repair tools, but then everything else is the same. I'm considering other interior overhauls concerning the engine, because I think the engine I built for this is pretty lazy, and I'd like to make a new one. Aside from that, though, it is the same thing. It is the same Sherman, which is really cool because it was nice to not have to redesign the whole thing and still to ultimately be able to get a new model out of it, which was kind of a satisfying thing. And it still does what it needs to do, and it looks pretty nice. I was considering maybe doing like a maybe a North Africa mock. I haven't considered that yet, and I ultimately don't have any British tankers either. That's why my American one is here. So I would have to do some reading and figure out like what pieces I would have that would work the best for that. But I'm not really sure, and I haven't really decided yet. But this model is ultimately complete. I might make tweaks for it to it in the future, but I think it looked fairly nice, and I still wanted it to feature it in case also if I ever ended up doing a better British Sherman, then that would be fun too. I was considering doing the Firefly as well, with the larger gun and stuff, and the changed turret. But I haven't gotten around to that either. I was always worried that I might make a turret too big and the body would look too small. But I think this one's okay, even with the gun barrel that's a little bit longer. I figured there was some variety in how the Shermans were made and used, so I figured it might be kind of nice to just end up going with what was natural. So this is my British M4A3 Sherman in the North Africa campaign camouflage, and that's it. That's all this video is, just a mini showcase as per usual. Thank you to everybody for watching and checking it out. It's just another one of my quirky little weird projects, but I thought it would be fun to share, and I hope people like it.